Welcome to Ring Country Forum.
And good Monday morning to you. Turn on my microphone. There you go. Good Monday morning to you. That's when you know it's a Monday for sure. The following forum is a paid broadcast. Views and opinions expressed by guests on this broadcast are theirs alone and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the host, the station, or its owners. KMOG is exempt from any liability that should arise from the broadcast. Before we get rolling, we always like to thank our local sponsors and hope you'll patronize them. Dana Law Group, Pinnacle Propane, Dan Good Flooring, Hospitality Wireless, Jared Owens Law Firm, Choice Auto and Truck, and Sunshine Cleaning and Restoration. It's a Monday and it is, let's see, what month is this again? This is September, I believe. Are we still in September?
We are.
We are in September, so it's our regular visit with Gary Morris, the chairman of the Gila County Republican Party, and Andy McKinney, the first vice chair of the Gila County Republican Party. And we're going to talk politics for an hour or so. Good morning, gentlemen. How you doing?
Very well, thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Charlie, and hello out there to everybody in Radio Land.
You know, last week we remembered 9/11, and it's just really hard to realize that it's been 19 years since that tragedy, and it really changed America. It changed America in a lot of ways, and I wonder if you just have some thoughts and reflections on that.
Well, 2,996 Americans died during that. Next year will be the 20th anniversary. I had some direct personal involvement in the rescue efforts in New York City. Was in town twice during that rescue effort. So next year on the 20th anniversary, I'll come back and we can spend a full hour on it. But it changed the country, it changed law enforcement, the fire service, and it changed everybody that watched that terrible half hour watching two of the towers come down. It's, seems like it was yesterday, but it's 19 years.
And Charlie, I had a chance to go a couple of years ago, went back to New York City, and of course I went to the site, and it's very dramatic. I mean, the memorial there is really touching, and they have the names of every single one of the victims. And I was there and just kind of in awe of the quality of the monument and the number of victims. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. And then I noticed, well, look, this name is in gold. And look over there's another one, that name is in gold. And eventually I figured it out. The names in gold were people like Chairman Morris, who were firefighters who were lost going in to the towers. And that's when I started sobbing. I just couldn't imagine that kind of courage. And hundreds of firefighters ran into that building to perish. It was just phenomenal and heartbreaking.
343 firefighters and 71 police officers went into those buildings and didn't come out.
You know, the impact goes, we all remember, and we talked about it last week, where we were when that happened. I have a friend who passed away this past year, and she was a bond trader on Wall Street, and her offices were directly across from the World Trade Center, so she was up high and had a straight on view of exactly what was happening, and saw the people who jumped off the roof. And she immediately resigned her position, left New York, moved to Florida, never to return. But she was really never the same.
Yeah.
You know, it had such a deep impact. And not to get too far astray, but one of the things that one of my sons said to me this past week, and his birthday is on 9/11, he said, "Dad, have you ever thought that after 9/11 the country really came together? Everybody came together. There were really no divides, racial, demographic, political. It seemed like everybody really just pulled together as a country. And we lost a lot of lives, 3,000 some lives, correct? In the COVID situation, we've lost 170,000 lives, and just the opposite has happened." And he said, "Why do you think that is?" I have no idea. I wonder if you gentlemen do, what's changed in 19 years that we've become so fragmented and we're so torn apart?
Well, there's one political party that is out there very publicly calling the President of the United States a Nazi and a traitor every day, day in, day out, day in, day out. First thing that happened, as soon as the day he took office, they started manufacturing very elaborate fabrications about him. And I think you can lay it right at the doorstep of the Democrat Party. There's a mime on the internet, and it shows a black hand and a white hand intertwined in one of those brotherly handshakes. And the slogan is, what Democrats fear. Democrats don't want us to get along. Democrats want us to be divided so that they can pit young against old, so they can pit black against white, so they can pit rich against poor. And that's what they do. And look at their pronouncements every single day. And of course, it's amplified by their fellow travelers in the media.
Yeah, let me add to that. It isn't just Andy's opinion as he speaks about this. It's demonstrated every day. We, for the last 2.5 years, have talked about hate alters reality and judgment. And that's been demonstrated with Democrat actions for years. They're willing to hurt themselves and the public to stay in power. And it's gone beyond hate now, it's gone to rage. And with rage, even more unrealistic actions, and their reality is just completely altered. It's not about serving the public, it's all about staying in power. And that's clearly demonstrated. And one of the actions is Democrats have been fighting against a new relief bill for nearly 2 months. And last Thursday, they voted the latest design of that bill down. Why? Because it gets relief to the public and it's a win for the president. They're willing to hurt the average American who needs money to survive and small businesses that need money to survive in order for the Democrat Party to stay in power. It's beyond reality. It's not serving the public that they claim to represent.
I heard Kamala Harris say that she probably wouldn't take the vaccine because she wouldn't trust it if it was released. And I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh about it, but that really did strike me as a really kind of strange.
Yeah.
Vile, I think, is the word you're looking for. We'll see what happens when the vaccine comes available, if she does or not. I don't know anything about her personal situation. It may be that she's a healthy person, and frankly, the people that are dying from complications with COVID are people who have 7 other things wrong with them. And she always seems pretty healthy to me when I see her on television.
No, but she was saying that she wouldn't do it because she didn't trust the president. That was the bottom line of her rationale.
Well,
she wouldn't take it because it was coming out during this Republican administration.
Yeah, well, that is just not nice.
Now, another example of hate-altering reality. I mean, it's smart that if it's available, it's been tested and gone through the proper process to get vaccinated. It's not very smart to say, I'm not, and continue to be a potential carrier.
And by doing that, that encourages other people to not participate as well, thereby potentially harming or killing other people. And she should be ashamed of herself.
So let's go closer to home. What's happening in Gila County right now with the Republican Party?
Lots of stuff.
Lots of stuff. And again, I want to have your listeners know that we've got a Republican headquarters in town that's very active. Nearly 5,000 visitors since mid-June. And some days we see 150, 200 people come through the doors.
And Mr. Chairman, in the last presidential election cycle, I believe we had, for the entire cycle, we had 3,000.
For 5 months.
Yeah, for 5 months going through the doors, but we've hugely exceeded that.
Yeah, and we've expanded the hours. So each weekday and Saturday we're open from 8 to 5, and we're located down at 434 South Beeline Highway. And I want to encourage everybody to register to vote and get out to vote. We've got the problem of mail-in ballots and voter fraud coming up, and the only way we can overcome that is a massive vote for Trump. And you only get that with a large turnout. So if you haven't registered to vote yet, do so. If you want to come over from the Democrat Party and register for Republican, the same for Independents, do so, but you've got to do that by October 5th. And for those at home that don't have the capability to go to the polls, if you want to vote in person, and you need a ride, I'm going to give you a phone number here in a minute. So get your pen out, and I'll give you that number, and we'll get you to the polls. And we're making quite a bit of progress on voter registration. July and August through September 9, Republicans jumped forward with 720 new votes.
720 new registered Republicans?
Yes.
Just in Gila County?
Sorry about the vote. It's registered Republicans. Democrats lost 223, and Independents gained 42. And what that represents is there's crossover from Independents and probably some from Democrats to the Republican Party. That's good reality. And for the headquarters, listening to what I need you to know, we got a Trump Depot. You can come in there and buy anything and everything Trump: hats, shirts,
Beer mugs.
yes, yeah, and masks too. And we had quite a big event with the Trump team bus that came through town back on the 20th. A couple hundred folks turned out for that. So for those that may need a ride to the polls, here's the number: 928-478-8186. 928-478-8186 will get you to the polls. And you can call ahead and schedule a pickup while we're waiting for the election. We'll come get you.
We're visiting with Gary Morris and Andy McKinney from the Gila County Republican Party. If you'd like to join the conversation, the number is 474-2427. We welcome your calls if you'd like to take part, if you have a question or a comment, and we'll have more right after this. First part not cool, second part cool.
Great
Oh, yeah.
constitutional amendments.
Not gonna be
headed for Phoenix.
Americans. The 13th Amendment ended slavery. The 14th defined citizenship for the slaves, which Democrats had tried to negate. The 15th guaranteed the right to vote by citizens of any color. All of these were opposed in bloc by the Democrat Party. In a similar manner, always expanding liberty, the Republican Party fostered the 19th Amendment, which granted the vote to women. Prior to this, the state of Wyoming in 1890 granted the vote to women under Republican Party leadership, helping to pave the way for the later national success. The first woman to serve in Congress was Republican Jeanette Rankin from the state of Montana. The first Jewish senator was Republican Joseph Simon of Oregon.
Paid for by the Gila County Republican Committee.
It's a Monday morning in Rim Country, and this is the Rim Country Forum. Charlie Serafin, your host, along with Gary Morris and Andy McKinney. And Andy, you did sound great on that spot. Nice job. Way to go.
And I thank you. I appreciate that. But President Trump was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. And what do you know, Charlie? This is somebody that was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize who actually has fostered the peace process. As you know, the first major agreement since the 1970s, so that's about 50 years, 40, 50 years, biggest deal in terms of peace in the Middle East, been fostered by President Trump. This is a historic peace arrangement between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. The Democrats, the media, and the elites have ignored this tremendous achievement. I haven't seen any mention of it on the standard news outlets at all. And then guess what? Wait, there's more. We have also now 3 weeks pass, and we have an agreement with Bahrain, with a similar peace agreement between Israel and Bahrain. And the press in Israel, I get bulletins every day from a number of outlets within Israel, and the buzz within Israel is, gee, who's next? Who's going to be the next Arab state to make peace with Israel? And Israel has been a country since 1948, and theoretically, most of these countries in the Middle East have been at war with Israel since that time. Again, the Bahrain agreement, ignored by the Democrats, ignored by the media. They don't care. They're not interested in peace. President Obama received the prize within months of his ascending to the presidency, and his achievements in the field of peacemaking were zero. Nothing. He hadn't done a thing. They just gave him the prize. And the
That's a participation trophy.
yeah, there you go.
No, it was all related to him going around the world and apologizing for America's actions.
Yeah. Yeah. We're sorry. We're rich and powerful. Sorry. Other things that President Trump has accomplished just lately in the most recent reporting quarter, 3 months. This is incredible. I mean, this is literally mind-boggling. In the most recent reporting quarter, the economy of the United States added 9 million new jobs. This is the biggest job growth in any quarter in the history of America. Thank you, President Trump. And no thank you, some of you Democrat governors that want to keep people from going out and getting a bite to eat. That's shameful. Just in August, 1.4 million new jobs in August. Unemployment was at 13% in May due to the Wuhan virus pandemic, and now in August it was 8.4%. And some of the national unions are beginning to endorse President Trump, namely the police unions, because the Democrats hate the police. And the police have finally woken up and said, oh, well, wait a minute, we've got a deal with you. We vote for you and you give us raises. What happened to that? And the Democrats say, well, we hate you, you stink, you're cops. So they're switching over to the Grand Opportunity Party, where they should have been all along.
Yeah, and the Democrat response is pretty interesting. They're blocking anything that might be viewed as a success for Trump. They've been blocking Trump's proposed police reform bill that all these people are out rioting about.
I thought the Democrats wanted to reform the police.
They do, but they just want to do it their way, which is to defund law enforcement. So, as described earlier, they're willing to hurt the American public in order for them to have their own successes and political power. So it's very concerning.
I'm sure there are some liberals and Democrats listening this morning, and I want you to know that you're invited to join the conversation. Both gentlemen here are.
Oh, we'd love to have a Democrat call in and kind of explain their position and all this.
So if you're looking for an equal voice, you're welcome to call 474-2427.
Or they can go buy their own time, cheapskates.
Yeah, or you could come in and buy an hour once a month and come in and tell us, how you feel about things and what's going on. So unemployment, jobs, the economy generally is coming back, still not where we would like to have it, And we took a major hit from COVID. There's just no question. It's just so much of the country is shut down, and so many states, like California, are still shut down. People are sequestered in their homes, working from home. You can't go into the office. It's crazy.
Can't go to church. And again, all these examples you described are in Democrat-run governorships.
But you can go to the liquor store or the pot store.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just not to church.
Just
Yeah.
not the church.
Yeah. Continue to alter your reality. Yeah. But we did have the convention. 2 conventions.
2 conventions, one good one, one
Yeah.
not as good.
Which one was a good one?
The one that had the American flags all over the place. Well, my view in comparing the two was it was like watching, for the Democrats, an old B-rated black and white movie. They opened without any flags, no Pledge of Allegiance, no prayer. The backgrounds were all in kind of a gray imaging and so on and so forth.
It was a downer, man.
Yeah, it really was. And compared to the Republicans' opening night to Democrats' opening night on C-SPAN, for the Republicans, they got 6 times the number of persons viewing the convention on opening night than the Democrats.
6 times the
6
viewership?
times. 6 times. And C-SPAN has this call-in program after the convention is concluded each day. They got so many callers to their designated Democrat phone line, calling in and telling them they're abandoning. These are Democrats that are calling in and saying, I'm leaving the Democrat Party. It got so many that C-SPAN had to shut it down.
Wow.
And they didn't expect that kind of turnout. So,
And that's reflected in the numbers here in Gila County as well.
yeah, so.
I have a question for you. If you see an American flag flying at a residence, at a private residence in the state of Arizona or anywhere in the United States for that matter, how would you guess that person is voting?
Republican.
And why? Why is it that we're not seeing that same affection for the flag from the other party?
Because the Republican Party has always been the law and order party, and the Democrats have not. They're weak in supporting law enforcement. It took Biden weeks. Their Democrat convention had absolutely no mention whatsoever of the riots going on around the country. And Biden came out and made a short, weak video statement that was released after he finally recognized that the polls are showing that the Democrats have got to say something about law and order or they're going to lose it. But those that put up a flag, thank you, because it takes courage today to do that. We've had examples where Republican houses have been damaged, in one case burned down because they were flying the flag or had Trump signs out in their yard. It's just a terrible state of affairs.
The flag is an American symbol. It's not just law and order. It's not just pro-police. It's not really any political platform or party or statement. It's our national symbol, and yet it's become a polarizing force, and that I seriously do not understand it.
I am proud of Patrick Henry. I am proud of Davy Crockett, who gave his life for Texas independence at the Alamo. I am proud of Abraham Lincoln, who set in motion an enormous army where hundreds of thousands of Republicans died grotesquely with those big musket balls ripping through their flesh. I'm proud of those guys. The Democrats are ashamed. And that's the difference. I'm proud of them, they're ashamed of them.
Yeah, and again, that was reflected in the convention. Only after they started getting complaints and Republicans are citing, hey, Democrats, you don't have any American flags at your convention, did they post it. And never did the Democrat convention have a prayer. They only had one pledge of allegiance for one night, and that was after the public was complaining about the flag. So it takes courage to put a flag up today. It shouldn't happen, but that's a symbol of Republicans, and Democrats just can't accept that.
That's Gary Morris. He is the chairman of the Gila County Republican Party, along with Andy McKinney, who's the first vice chair of the Gila County Republican Party. And we'll have more right after this. Welcome back to the Monday edition of the Rim Country Forum. We're visiting with the officials of the Gila County Republican Party today, and we've got a call. Good morning. Who's on the line? Hi, Mary.
I just need to know where to go to get the information so that I can talk to people about it. Because if they ask about it, I want to be able to give them correct information. For one thing, is that correct?
Well, you can Google that question, and the answer is no. And it goes back to the Obamacare health program, but the president has publicly announced that in his proposed health care plan that pre-existing conditions will be covered, and most of the private health coverage already allows that. So there's information out there that you can find to fact check and get some answers for you. Correct. Well, Charlie could probably tell you more about it, but it was not about free speech. It was a manner in which they put mandates on individual radio stations as to what they could broadcast, and it actually limited free speech.
Yeah, it was the fairness doctrine wasn't exactly about fairness. It was eliminated actually during a Republican administration, and what they said was that if you sell a commercial to someone, you have to offer the exact same length of commercial at the same price to the other party, and in a sense it did end up stifling advertising, because not everybody could afford to do it. So those people with more money and more influence would be able to dominate the airwaves. So they tried to open it up and say it's going to be more of a free market thing. But the concept of fairness, and I can tell you here at KMOG, what we do is that if we offer advertising to one candidate, we offer the same advertising to the opposition at the same price, and they don't always take advantage of it. Where it's really gotten crazy is these PACs that are not necessarily affiliated, or you don't know what their affiliation is or who's funding them. You can tell by the message itself, but the one you just referred to is some amorphous group with a different name, and it doesn't come out and say exactly who's behind the ad, and there's no obligation of truthfulness in the ad. So they can come out and do a smear campaign and say any kind of negative thing about any candidate that they want, and there's nothing in the law that prohibits them from telling lies.
So President Trump cares for the military. Like I've heard some people saying that he's anti-military, and that's ridiculous, and I told them that. I just wish that there was an actual rule that you could lie on your ads? Because I know it's naive, but, you know, we got
Mary, the problem with the government getting involved in truth-telling is you're going to get somebody like Beto O'Rourke in charge of deciding what's truthful and what is not truthful. We just don't want the government involved in that kind of stuff whatsoever. It's a bad highway to start traveling down. But thanks for calling in. And come by the headquarters. Say hello.
Is there comes another call.
There we go. Let's go back to the phones again. Good morning. Who's on the line?
Into this election to get rid of Trump.
And that is the case in Arizona for a number of candidates, and some of them are here in the District 6. And what I propose to some of the Republican funding mechanisms is you put the picture of that candidate that's receiving money from Bloomberg or Soros, put her picture up and plastered across the front of it, funded by Bloomberg or funded by Soros, and get it out and about.
Yeah, caller, I don't know if you remember when President Trump was running in 2016, running for office. He had an event down in Fountain Hills. Well, some Democrat operatives took their cars on the highway down there and stopped the cars in the middle of the road, and then chained the cars shut so that to disrupt the traffic of the people going to the rally. Well, in any case, the name of the gal that was in charge of that demonstration was put in the paper. So, being a busybody as I am, I looked into her. And I found out that she was a Mexican national, that she was in the United States going to university up in the upper Midwest, Wisconsin or Minnesota, someplace up in there. But she was no longer a student. She still had the student visa, which allowed her to be in the country, but she was a full-time employee of one of the dozens and dozens of Soros-funded front groups out of New Orleans. So she was paid by Soros, she was in the country fraudulently, and she was deliberately trying to disrupt the American campaign process. And that's what they do.
Yes, they do.
Yep. Well, thank you very much for your input. I appreciate you calling in today. And as I told Mary, stop by the Republican office. Come in, say hello, and get a beer mug. Absolutely, it's theft.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you for your call this morning. You were talking about George Soros. I just heard this morning that Michael Bloomberg is putting $100 million into Florida advertising on behalf of Joe Biden.
Yeah, and a similar amount supposedly is coming into Arizona.
So talk about we've been talking about President Trump and we've been talking about the Republican candidates. What about the opposition?
Well, let's do a review of the Democrat ticket here. As Joe Biden is 78 years old, and in my view of watching on television is he's really feeble. There's a lot of conversation about his mental capacity. I'll let the public judge that. He spends a lot of time hiding in the basement and comes out. But Biden spent 40 years in Washington, D.C. as a senator and then a vice president. And during that time, he only had 2 signature bills passed.
In 40 years?
In 40 years. So he was the guy at the table that really didn't make any decisions, and that was shown in his response to the H1N1 pandemic a few years ago. And by the way, for the public, with this current argument that Trump didn't take leadership, for the H1N1 pandemic, the Obama administration waited 6 months before they declared a national public health crisis. And then they put Biden in charge of it. And it was a total disaster. Millions of people exposed and hundreds died. President Trump, within 30 days of a single first confirmation of COVID in Washington State, within 30 days made a national health declaration. 30 days. And that was combined with a travel ban on China, and a few weeks later, a travel ban coming out of Europe because of what was happening in Italy. But the Biden and Obama administration delayed action for 6 months. That's a fact. And, you know, former U.S. Attorney General Nancy Yates has testified that she was in the room with Biden and Obama when they conspired to set up General Flynn for false criminal charges. I don't want somebody like that in the White House. As you remember, he strong-armed the country of Ukraine to drop an investigation of his son, which they did so, and he used $60 million of aid as the bribe to get that done. Then he flies his son to China in Air Force Two, and his son gets $1 billion of investment in his company.
What qualifications did Hunter Biden have for dealing with a $1 billion deal with a Communist Chinese Party controlled company?
He was the son of a vice president. That's it. And here's who is on his campaign staff and will be advisors if he's elected. Bernie Sanders is his economic advisor. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is his environmental advisor. And Beto O'Rourke is the gun czar who's already said, hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15s away from you. So
or
that's,
as Biden calls them, AR-14s.
yeah, goes to his cognitive abilities presently. So that's the Democrat presidential candidate. And now we have
The Democrat vice presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, got 2% of the vote in the primaries before she dropped out. So even the Democrat Party doesn't have any use for her, and certainly the general public should not. There's a lot of buzz in the environment these days about historical sins of the past. They're tearing down statues of various people. But talking about sins of the past, her great-great-grandfather was a wealthy slave owner in Jamaica. He owned 5 plantations and 200 slaves in the late 1800s. So far, Black Lives Matter has been knocking down statues of slave owners, but nobody's mentioned that, and I wonder why not. Well, because it's not convenient for them. Again, showing the hypocrisy of the left. She is farther left than 97% of the Democrats in the United States, never mind the Republicans. She is more left than Bernie Sanders is. And Bernie Sanders describes himself as a socialist. She would decriminalize illegal immigration, which means that anybody at any time can come to the United States and come in and take advantage She wants to abolish the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Service, and she compared them to the Ku Klux Klan. Now, everybody knows that the Ku Klux Klan was an arm of the Democrat Party. Either she doesn't know that, or she thinks the public is so stupid that they don't know that. But we do know. We know that the Ku Klux Klan was a Democrat Party organization. She believes in making government health care programs available to anybody as soon as they sneak across the border. So you don't have a fence, you don't have border enforcement, and anybody that wants to can come across the border. And we've seen that if the borders are open, we can have hundreds of thousands. She wants to eliminate private health care. They don't even have elimination of private health care in England, for heaven's sakes. She's a co-sponsor with AOC of the Green New Deal. The Green New Deal will eliminate passenger aircraft. Imagine that. Imagine no passenger aircraft. They asked AOC how people are going to get to Hawaii, and she said they could take the train. These people are not just vile; they're colossally stupid. She wants to eliminate our one of the great things that President Trump has done. Finally, going back to the 70s, or maybe before that, we now have energy independence in the United States. No longer do we take our hard-earned money and ship it off all over the world to places like Venezuela, where they hate us, and give them money and sustain their economies. That money stays here and sustains our economy. Thank you very much, President Trump. She wants to eliminate that. She wants to go back to the old ways of shoveling money out our borders to countries that don't like us at all. She supports late-term death of babies. Everybody knows about the Democrat governor in Virginia. We refer to him as Governor Blackface because he went to a party dressed up like a black person, and the Democrats don't seem to care about that at all. But he suggested that after a baby is born, you take a look at it and say, yeah, you know, I'm not sure I like this baby, and then let it die. This is what the governor of Virginia said, let the baby die. Good Lord, and this is, Kamala Harris is right along with that. She's an abortion on demand as late in the pregnancy process as is convenient. And she's criminally friendly. She recently said about the BLM riots, they're not going to stop, and they should not stop. And by the way, Kamala Harris and other leading Democrats have personally chipped in bail money to get these arsonists and criminals out of prison.
Let's go back to the phone. Good morning. Who's on the line?
That's
Hey,
next.
Lee.
Get ready.
Conservatives, the Republicans, going to do any kind of measures to keep these riots from happening when Trump wins? You know, how do we protect ourselves? How do we stop this stuff? And it's just insane. And then when I read the newspaper, they got, oh, that this is the most criminal administration, and yet they have no facts at all. People cannot be that stupid to not see it. And I mean, I'm seeing it in the local paper, so now I'm using it for my dogs, you know, too. And they can't read because they're blind. But there's just so much injustice. And I cannot believe what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing. How can so many people be blind?
We'll come back with an answer on that one. Thank you for your call, Emily, and we got to take care of some business here. And it's time for the final segment of the Rim Country Forum for a Monday. We have two wonderful guests in studio, Gary Morris and Andy McKinney from the Gila County Republican Party. Gentlemen, we've got a couple of minutes here. What do we need to cover?
Well, let's talk about the risk of being a Republican and the danger involved. More than 1,000 Republicans have been assaulted by Democrats, some seriously, some killed, since President Trump announced his 2016 campaign. You don't hear this in the media. They purposely and consciously suppress this news. And you certainly don't hear anything in the media about Republicans assaulting Democrats. That would be the lead headline on the national news if it ever occurred. So Andy's going to review the most recent attacks that have killed Republicans.
Yep, there's a fellow named Burnell Trammell in Milwaukee. It's a black guy, a Trump supporter, locally famous for being a Trump supporter. He was a businessman, store owner, and he was sitting in a chair out in front of his store, and a car pulled up, and they just murdered him. They just shot him to death as he sat in his chair. And the murderer was a Black Lives Matter supporter guy. Another Trump supporter, and actually I've seen the video on this, and it's awful. An Antifa guy is hiding in, where nobody can see him. The Trump guy, who is a member of an outfit called Pray for Trump, unarmed, walking down the street. There's an ordinary citizen. This guy comes out of hiding and shoots him in the back and kills him. Just awful, 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 awful. That guy was a outspoken Antifa leader. In Portland, again, a journalist was stabbed in the back. He survived. Two Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputies were shot in their patrol car over the weekend. The suspect was a Black Lives Matter guy. One of them was a 31-year-old mother, one of the officers, a 6-year-old child, and the other one was a young 24-year-old male officer. Black Lives Matter protesters showed up at the hospital where they took the policeman chanting, "Hope you die." This is the caliber of the people that are opposing President Trump.
Gentlemen, I appreciate your visit with us today. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you again next month, or maybe even sooner. And we want to, before we say goodbye, thank our sponsors once again: Sunshine Cleaning and Restoration, Choice Auto and Truck, Jarrett Owens Law Firm, Hospitality Wireless, Dan Good Flooring, Medical Propane, and Dana Law Group. Charlie Serafin here saying thanks for listening. We'll see you again tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock here on the Rim Country Forum. And a reminder, you're listening to KMOG Payson. It's 10 o'clock.